When they miss your weakness, not you. Think about the person who came back after you became stronger, not when you were broken, not when you were explaining, not when you were waiting for them to understand, not when you were giving them chance after chance. They did not miss you then. They missed you later, when you stopped begging, when you stopped answering quickly, when you stopped explaining your pain, when you stopped forgiving without change, when you stopped being easy to reach. Suddenly, they noticed you. Suddenly, they said they missed you. Suddenly, they said you changed. Suddenly, they wanted the old you back. But here is the dark truth. Sometimes they do not miss you. They miss your weakness. They miss the version of you who was easier to control. They miss the version of you who apologized first. They miss the version of you who kept explaining. They miss the version of you who forgave too fast. They miss the version of you who stayed even after being hurt. And that's the darkest lesson behind people who return after you become stronger. They are not always returning because they love who you are now. Sometimes they are returning because they lost access to the version of you that made their life easier. If this is your first time on the Hidden Hurts, subscribe right now and turn on the bell. This channel is about the pain people hide, the patterns people repeat, and the dark truths about human behavior that most people only understand after they have been hurt. Subscribe now, because if someone ever came back only after you stopped being easy to control, this video is going to explain something you may have felt but never had the words to say. Let's begin with the first truth. People do not always miss your presence. Sometimes they miss your availability. There's a difference. Presence means they valued you. Availability means you were useful. Presence means they missed your heart. Availability means what your heart gave them. And many people confuse these two things. They think they came back, so maybe they care. But you must ask a harder question. What exactly do they miss? Do they miss your soul, or do they miss your silence? Do they miss your love, or do they miss your tolerance? Do they miss your energy, or do they miss the way you gave it without asking for anything back? Because some people only realize your value when they lose access to your weakness. They do not miss you because they finally understand your pain. They miss you because your pain used to be reachable. Your guilt made you reachable. Your hope made you reachable. Your fear of losing them made you reachable. And when that disappeared, they felt the loss. Not the loss of you, the loss of control. Nietzsche understood something brutal about human nature. Many people do not love strength in others. They love usefulness. They love the version of a person that keeps them comfortable. They love the version that does not challenge them. They love the version that forgives, bends, explains, returns, and stays. But the moment that person begins to stand on their own ground, the relationship changes, because now love has to become respect. And some people are not capable of respecting what they can no longer control. Type, "They missed my weakness" in the comments if you have ever felt someone only wanted the old version of you back because that version was easier to use. Because many people watching this know exactly what that feels like. They know what it feels like when someone ignores you while you're available, then chases you when you're finally distant. They know what it feels like when someone disappears during your pain, but returns during your strength. They know what it feels like to be wanted most by the people who respected them least. Now here's the second truth. When you become stronger, the wrong people do not celebrate you. They test you. They test whether the old version is still inside you. They send a soft message. They act nostalgic. They mention old memories. They say, "I miss how things used to be." They ask why you changed. They ask why you're so cold now. They act hurt by the boundaries that saved you. And if you're not careful, you'll feel guilty. You'll start wondering if you became too harsh. You'll start remembering the good moments. You'll start thinking maybe you should explain yourself one more time. But listen carefully. The right people do not need the weak version of you to feel loved. The right people can love you with boundaries. The right people can love you when you say no. The right people can love you when you stop overgiving. The right people can love you when you no longer shrink yourself to keep them comfortable. But the wrong people feel betrayed by your growth, not because you hurt them, but because your growth ended their advantage. They liked you better when you doubted yourself. They liked you better when you apologized for things you didn't do. They liked you better when you explained every boundary like it was a crime. They liked you better when your heart was always open, even after they mishandled it. So when they say you changed, don't always hear it as criticism. Sometimes it's proof that the version of you they benefited from no longer exists. Like this video right now if you have ever been called cold simply because you stopped being easy to hurt. And share this video with someone who keeps feeling guilty for outgrowing people who never protected their heart. Sometimes one message can stop someone from returning to a version of themselves that almost destroyed them. Now let's go deeper. People who miss your weakness often return with emotion, not accountability. They'll say they miss you, but they won't clearly say how they hurt you. They'll say they think about you, but they won't name the behavior that made you leave. They'll say they wish things were different, but they won't explain what they are willing to change. They'll say, "Can we go back to how we were?" But that's exactly the problem. You don't want to go back to how things were. How things were is what broke you. How things were is where you kept giving and they kept taking. How things were is where your pain had no consequence. So when someone says they want the old days back, ask yourself, which old days? The days where I was silent? The days where I was anxious? The days where I accepted less than I deserved? The days where I begged for basic respect? The days where I confused being needed with being loved? Not every past deserves to be revisited. Some memories are beautiful only because you survived them. They were not safe, they were familiar. And familiarity can feel like home, even when it's hurting you. This is why Nietzsche's lesson is so dark. Becoming yourself will disturb the people who depended on you not becoming yourself, because self-respect changes the arrangement. Before, they could reach you through guilt. Now, guilt doesn't work the same way. Before, they could pull you back with nostalgia. Now you remember the whole story, not just the beautiful parts. Before, they could confuse you with soft words. Now you look for changed behavior. Before, they could make you feel selfish for having boundaries. Now you know that boundaries are not selfish. They are proof that you finally belong to yourself. That's why your strength makes some people uncomfortable, because your strength means they can no longer use your wounds as handles. They can no longer hold you by your fear. They can no longer pull you back through your loneliness. They can no longer make you apologize for protecting yourself. And that's when they say they miss you. But what they really mean is, I miss when you were easier. I miss when I could hurt you and still keep you. I miss when your love had no limits. I miss when your forgiveness came before my accountability. I miss when you needed me more than you trusted yourself. That's not love. That's control speaking through the language of fiction. Now think about the person who came to your mind during this video, the one who came back after you healed, the one who suddenly cared when you stopped chasing, the one who called you cold after you found peace, the one who missed the version of you that was breaking. Ask yourself honestly, do they miss the person you are now, or do they miss the access they had before? Would they still love you if you never became easy again? Would they still want you if you kept your boundaries? Would they still stay if you no longer needed their approval? These questions reveal everything, because real love does not ask you to become weaker so it can feel stronger.
Real love does not need you broken to feel needed. Real love does not punish you for healing. Love honors your growth. Control resents it. Now, here is the third truth. Sometimes the old version of you will miss being weak too. Not because weakness was good, but because it was familiar. There is a strange comfort in old pain. You knew how to survive there. You knew your role. You knew how to apologize. You knew how to overthink. You knew how to wait. You knew how to accept crumbs and call them love. But strength is different. Strength feels lonely at first. Strength feels quiet. Strength does not always come with applause. Strength means you stop texting people you still miss. Strength means you stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Strength means you let some doors stay closed even when your heart remembers the sound of them opening. And yes, that can hurt. Growth hurts because it asks you to stop choosing what is familiar and start choosing what is healthy. Growth hurts because you realize how much of your life was spent trying to earn love from people who only valued your weakness. But that pain is not a sign you made the wrong choice. It is a sign you are leaving an old identity. And leaving an old identity can feel like losing a home, even if that home was burning. This is why you must be careful when people return, because they may not be the only ones who miss your weakness. A part of you may miss it too. The part that wants to be chosen, the part that wants the apology, the part that wants them to finally understand, the part that thinks maybe this time will be different. But before you open the door, ask for evidence, not emotion. Evidence. What changed? What did they learn? What responsibility did they take? What behavior is different? What pattern ended? Because without evidence, you are not returning to love, you are returning to hope. And hope without evidence is how old wounds reopen. This is where self-respect becomes quiet. It does not shout, it does not insult. It simply says, I cannot return to what made me forget myself. I cannot give access to the person who only loved me when I was weak. I cannot betray the version of me that fought so hard to become free. That sentence matters because the version of you that healed paid a price. It cried, it learned, it sat alone, it stopped chasing, it survived the silence, it rebuilt itself without the apology it deserved. So do not hand that version back to someone just because they suddenly miss you. They may miss you, but they may also miss who they were allowed to be around you. They may miss being careless. They may miss being forgiven. They may miss being needed. They may miss having power over someone who had not yet discovered their own. And you do not have to be that person anymore. Now, here is the dark lesson behind the title. When they miss your weakness, they will often call your strength cruelty. Your boundary will be called distance. Your peace will be called coldness. Your self-respect will be called pride. Your silence will be called punishment. Your growth will be called arrogance. But do not be fooled. People who benefited from your brokenness cannot always understand your healing, because your healing removes their role. Before, they were the person you chased. Now they are a lesson, and nobody likes becoming a lesson in someone else's life. That's why they may try to pull you back into the old story. They may remind you of the good times. They may say you're overthinking. They may say you used to be kinder. But sometimes the old kindness was not kindness. Sometimes it was fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being disliked, fear of losing someone who was already losing you. So when they ask for the old you, remember this: the old you survived by shrinking. The new you survived by standing. The old you explained everything. The new you watches behavior. The old you accepted apologies without change. The new you requires evidence. The old you confused pain with love. The new you chooses peace. And if they can't love the new you, then they never were loving the real you. They were loving the version of you that served them. The final truth is simple. Not everyone who says, I miss you, deserves your return. Some people miss the door. Some people miss the access. Some people miss the control. Some people miss the softness they never protected. Some people miss your weakness, not your soul. So don't rush when someone returns. Don't melt because they use the right words. Don't forget the nights you cried just because they remembered the days you smiled. Do not betray your healing because someone misses the version of you that let you hurt you.
Pause, observe, protect your peace. Let their behavior speak longer than their words, because anyone can miss you when you're gone, but only the right people respect who you became after surviving them. Comment, "I'm not that version anymore," if someone ever missed the weaker version of you. Like this video if it gave you clarity about someone in your life, and subscribe to The Hidden Hurts for more videos about dark psychology, human behavior, self-respect, emotional intelligence, betrayal, hidden motives, and the painful truths people only understand after they finally wake up. Remember this before you go. When someone says they miss you, listen carefully. They may not be missing your heart. They may be missing the part of you that no longer exists. And if that part of you had to die so you could finally live in peace, do not bring it back for anyone.